Okay, I'm not going to start from the top, because I think that was all just introductory stuff, right? Am I there now? Do I exist?
Yeah.
I'm not a vampire anymore, hooray! Okay. Right, I've got a neural network. It has the task of helping out the human cytologists in identifying positive cases of cervical cancer. Okay, that makes sense? Describe the source of data for the neural network and the role of training in the effectiveness of this system. Okay, so this question had two parts to it, two sort of subsections to get the 3 marks. The first part, the source of data, just the 1 mark for that, and that was quite well done. The second part, the role of training in the effectiveness of this system, we didn't do so well on. Okay, so let's try and break that down. So this is part A. Okay, so sources of data. Now, there are 2 main sources of data that we need to supply to this neural network to train it, to get it to understand and be able to recognize these patterns. Someone help me out. You guys did quite well on this, right? What are the 2 sources of data? Or 2 pieces of data, I guess.
Previous records.
Okay, thank you. Previous records, right? So the slides that represent actual people and their scans and that kind of thing and what their cells look like, okay? So great, you've got a whole bunch of patients and the scans they've already had, and you take the pictures, here are the slides, you supply that to the neural network. But that's not all you need to give it. What else are we going to need to provide to this neural network so it can actually recognize what's cancer and what's not? Yeah, that's right. So if you don't know, if you don't tell the artificial neural network which ones are positive and which ones are negative, it's going to have all this data and not know what to do with it. Okay? So these are the source of data, right? You got to supply it. That's fine. Okay? Now, the role of training. Now, please take some good notes on this because your answers were not so great, so they need a little work. Okay? I was looking for you to mention 3 particular things that talked about, what makes training work. Okay? And in some ways, because this is an artificial neural network, this is the way our brains work. Okay? Even if you didn't pay that much attention to this decision support systems, you could, to some measure, sort of guess these. But we did really badly on it. Okay, so 3 things. Number 1, you just want a lot of data. Okay, so you want a sheer quantity of the previous records, the slides, right? The more you've got, the more hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of results you've got, the more reliable you'll be able to recognize things. Okay, but you don't just want lots of data. What kinds of data do you want? Let's think back to one of the more famous kinds of artificial neural networks we've looked at under studying this topic, right? You remember Deep Blue. What was Deep Blue? Does anyone remember what it was? It was an IBM computer that was designed to play chess, right? Now, and it was famous because it beat Garry Kasparov, who was the world #1 at the time, okay? Now, if you're trying to train a computer to play chess, okay, imagine it just played a single person all the time. Even if they were very good at chess. Okay, suppose it was me. Once upon a time, I was good at chess. In primary school, I have like trophies and stuff. And then I came to Roost and everyone played chess. Anyway. Now, imagine if I sat down with it and played, tens of thousands of games over and over and over again. So a large quantity of data with which to train the artificial neural network. What would be the problem with that set of data, even though it's very large? Why would it not be very good at training the neural network? Exactly, right? It'll be really good at recognizing the kinds of moves I do, my strategies. It would be very effective at beating me, okay, after playing me many times. But someone else comes along who has a different style of play, who just tries different kinds of things, and it'll be like, I've never seen this kind of thing before. I don't know how to counter these kinds of tactics or strategies. So that's chess. What about when you put it into the situation of trying to recognize cancerous slides? How are we gonna word it? What kind of data do we want? Random?
Wide the slide instead of choosing.
Wide variety.
Oh, yeah, okay, I think this is what you're getting at. This is a helpful word to use. Variety, or diversity, maybe. So you don't just want a large quantity of data, but you want a lot of them that are very different from each other, okay? So that way, if there's a single pattern which goes underneath all of them, you'll be able to recognize it in each of them, okay? All right, now, one last thing. These 2 things are talking about the slides. This thing here, right? So we want specific things, specific qualities about it, right? But we also want a specific quality about the results that we're providing and training the artificial neural network with. What kind of results do we want? Yeah. Oh, that's kind of two, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. So I'm including that under that. Just a simple one.
Correct.
We want the results to be accurate, right? Can you imagine training something, right? And the cytologist just made a bunch of errors, right? And you're like, here you go, neural network, learn off these. It's going to learn erroneous kinds of conclusions and it will not recognize the right patterns. Okay, so we want accurate sets of results. Okay. So when you put all of these together, okay, what's the role of training? We want the artificial neural network to be able to recognize in never before seen slides. That's the important thing. Okay, this is what differs from an expert system or anything else underneath. If you've got enough slides, right, and they're different enough to each other, and you know whether they're cancerous or precancerous or not, okay, then hopefully that'll all come together and you'll be able to recognize, even in slides you've never seen before, okay, just like human beings, whether it's positive or negative. Does that make sense? Okay, so these three things here, really, really important, and not many people mentioned, like, usually I just got one. Someone said, yeah, lots of data, okay, that was an easy one, but you missed out these other two, okay? Right, part B, critically analyze the responsibility of those involved in decision making with Papnet. Okay, so critically analyze. What does analyze mean? Analyze? What's the keyword? Not IPT analyze. I mean HSC analyze. What does it mean? Okay, so this lack of answer is why we did so badly at this question. Okay. Analyze means to draw out relationships and implications. Draw out relationships and implications. So you can see actually, even though it's HSC analyze and not IPT analyze, they're not that different. You want to get some meaning out of something which is, kind of raw data. Okay. So draw out relationships and implications. Right, now, relationships and implications about what? About the responsibility of those involved in decision making. Okay, so let's start with the easiest answer, which got you 1 mark, okay? What is the most obvious kind of situation that there's responsibility in decision making with?
If they get it wrong.
Yeah, that's right, okay? Whether, so this is my first point, okay? It's about the accuracy of the results. That are developed by the artificial neural network, okay? Okay, now, who does the responsibility ultimately rest on? Ultimately. Now, I guess it'd be someone who's got some kind of managerial or like, medical responsibility over, these kinds of, these labs that are conducting all of these tests, okay? And so, because the accuracy of the artificial neural network, right, it's not guaranteed, okay? Even if it was a human, it's not guaranteed, okay? This has to be checked. It ought to be checked by this person, this manager, or the cytologist, or the lab technicians, or whoever. Okay, people smile because they're like, haha, it's Anne. Anyway. So, this is part of, like, if I'm responsible for something, I want to check it, yeah? Like, I'm not just going to let it through without, and just say, yeah, it should be fine, okay? My name is going on these results, right? I'm the doctor or the technician or whoever who's certifying, yes, I think you do have precancerous cells, or I think you are clear, right? So, before it runs off, I'm going to want to check it. Even if I don't check every single one, I should at least check it regularly, right? To make sure it's still providing accurate results, okay? And that's something I need to do with an artificial neural network that I don't necessarily have to do with an expert system. Why? Why might I have to keep on checking the system if it's an artificial neural network? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. This is kind of like the, good catch. This is kind of like the benefit of artificial neural networks, right? That it's going to learn and adapt and update, but you got to be careful with it as well, right? Because if it changes for whatever reason, What if the results are no longer accurate? So that's why I want to go back to it maybe every week, every month, something like that, and make sure that I'm going to manually sit down and check these results myself. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, now this was the big main point, okay? But there are a couple of other sub-points that I was looking for to show that you critically analyzed, okay? So what other kinds of decisions get to be made here? Things like the security or the privacy of the data. This kind of thing gets decided by the people who are running the system, right? So all this data comes in, how's it going to be used, right? And as a patient, I want to know that this data is being used only for the purposes of checking out whether I have these cancerous cells or not, okay? And so, not only is the security or privacy of the data something that has to be protected, but also the purpose of the data, it has to be preserved. And by the way, this is a nice easy one. I think almost everyone missed it, but can you please make note, put like bold, red, highlight, whatever. Because think about it this way. Whenever you've got responsibility, okay, and there's the collection of data, there's always the possibility to use the data for a purpose that it wasn't intended for, okay? So you order stuff online from Amazon, right? And you have to provide them with your address. But you assume that they'll use that address for what purpose? To ship stuff to you, right? If they want to, say, send you promotional material, they have to ask you, right? That purpose there, you have to tick or untick a box that says, yes, I'd like to receive catalog or something like that, okay? And often it's automatically ticked, so if you want to get rid of it, you've got to uncheck it yourself. But if you provide data, like to this system, right? You want to know it's being used for this purpose and not some other one, okay? Like it's not being used for someone's PhD or something like that. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is what I was looking for. You see all of these come under the responsibility of whoever's running the system. Okay. Right.